Good morning everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. I have my messy mat down because I have been doing some mixed media fussy cuts. So I've made lots of different leaves by stamping onto some mixed media paper that I made. That's a lovely one. These are all stamps. I hand drew some. Those are all hand drawn. And I've got some smaller ones as well. These were from stamps, just smaller ones which I cut around. And also I use some die cuts to cut out some leaves as well. So these are really pretty. Love the colour of that one. These are from the Elizabeth Craft, one of the Elizabeth Craft Designs kits. I can't remember which one, but I will put it in the description after this video. So today I thought I would show you how I went about doing these with the stamping. I'm not going to do the die cuts because I know not everybody has a die cut machine or may not have a leaf die cut. So I'm going to show you how I went about doing these. So I will go and grab my equipment and then we will be back in a second. So to begin with, I have got a piece of mixed media paper. You could use watercolour paper, you could use some sketch paper, you could probably even use copy paper. I haven't tried it. It would probably have to be a thicker type of copy paper, I should think, just to stop it wrinkling. But you know, you could try with that as well. So any type of paper you could use. You could even use a book page if you wanted, because that would skip the step that we're going to do first. I have just used this mixed media because it takes water well, it takes ink well in different mediums, and it's a lot thicker. So at the end, our finished product, it's quite nice and sturdy. If you're wanting to, you know, because sometimes you might want to use something like this as a tuck spot, or you might want it on the front of a journal or the front of a card. And, you know, I just kind of like the idea of not having to back it to make it stronger. So I started with mixed media paper. I've also got water in a little spray. I have an acrylic block. I have some tissue. And I have these inks. So I've used ground espresso in the oxide, antique linen, old paper, forest moss, and I use the walnut stain in the ink. And I also did use the Gathered Twigs ink when I thought I needed to just lift the colour a little bit. So I can't find it now. Gathered Twigs, there we go. So I use that one as well. So it doesn't matter if you don't have these colours. I'm using these colours because A, they're the ones I've got, and B, I want quite an autumnal feel to mine, but you could obviously use whichever colours you have. So I'm going to put those to one side. We're going to do darkest to lightest, like that. So I'll get those ready. But the first thing we're going to do, I forgot to mention, is we're going to use some paper and just some Pritt stick. Now I found a glue stick works best for this. And all we're going to do is get some of these scrap paper bits. And I'm going to work two halves to begin with. I've just done it in two. I've just cut it like that. I just find it a bit easier to work with. I'm going to put some glue on. I'm going to push that down. So this will give us some texture onto our page, and this is how I achieved the book page look here. So I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to worry about how it sticks down, how much of the glue is being stuck, because we're going to actually rip this off in a second. You've probably seen this done before. I'm not the first person to have done this. It's the same over here. The reason I'm doing this first is because it kind of blends in with the rest of the inks and colours we're going to put on top, which I like. With these ones, I put them on after I've added the ink, so the text is a little bit brighter and it's also more white. So I'm just going to do it this way this time. So hopefully that will all blend together. I'm just going to get another sheet of that page. This is from American literature in French. I'm just going to add a little bit more. In places. Now what will happen, because I've been quite rough with the glue, is this page will only stick where obviously onto the glue where it's covered, and we can pull the rest off and it leaves a really nice effect on the page. So the text almost starts to blend into the background. So the next thing to do is to dry that off or to let it dry. I'm going to use a heat gun to speed it up. It is, there's a lot of drying involved in this, so I probably will cut most of that out. So I will just get this dried with my heat gun and then we will remove whatever's left. So I've given these a good dry, and the next thing we're going to do is just remove anywhere that's not stuck down. And what will happen is those bits will lift and the rest of it will stay stuck, and that's where you start to get this really nice texture, and it helps to blend the text into the page rather than it just being a block of book page. So I'm going to take off what I can for now, and what you'll find is the more it dries, the more little bits will come off, so you start to get this like really nice torn effect. So we can take off what we can. And it's just coming away where I've not put glue, basically. And I like to get my nail right under, just to help peel it. I'm going to do this with all of the bits I've stuck down. So that's all done. I've done it on both of them, and on this stage I would normally work on both at the same time, but because I want to be able to keep this in shot, I've moved the other one out of the way. So the next thing I'm going to do now, once these are all off, as I said, the more it dries, you'll find more comes off and you start getting this really nice effect. The next thing is we're going to start adding our inks or oxides. I like to use the oxides because they obviously oxidize, they change colour, you get some really nice effects. If you don't have those, you can just use normal ink. I have also used on this one acrylic paints and acrylic ink. Same on here and same on here. So you know, you don't necessarily need to use the inks. Although I think most of us, this is what most of us probably will have. If you only have one colour, say the vintage photo, you can mix inks with some watercolours. I have used watercolours as well. You know, so just use what you have. You don't need to go out and buy anything special for this. So a bit of oxide on to my acrylic block, lots of water, and basically smudge it onto your page. Now I actually want to do this a little bit lighter than what I had it on my previous one, because I'm just going to use a tissue. I don't like to put my ink back into a wet acrylic block because it does it is hard to lighten once it's dark. And I do feel like my last one was a little bit dark. So I'm going to keep it a little bit lighter for now. I can always add a little bit of dark if I want to. And I'm just using my acrylic block like that. So that's going to be it for the ground espresso for now. As I say, I can always add some. And I'm just going to get this dried off. Right, so that's dried. And I was just thinking as well, if you don't have any inks whatsoever, you could make up some coffee mixture. And you could put some coffee on, let it dry, put another layer of coffee on, let that dry, and that's how you'll get lighter and darker layers. So you could do it just using coffee formula as well. So that's another idea. So next one, walnut stain would be the next darkest. I'm going to use this at the end though, because I might do some flicks with it, or I might just use it if I want to darken it back up again. So the next one I'm going in with is Forest Moss. This is probably my all-time favourite colour after the Ground Espresso Oxide. This is the Oxide as well. This is, once it dries, a lovely yellowy green colour. Perfect if you're trying to do autumn projects. Perfect for grungy projects. And green is my favourite colour anyway. So I tend to always veer towards green-based colours. In fact, I've just bought a jumper this colour, which I haven't worn yet, but I will do. I should have worn it today. So pop that on there like that. Again, I'm just wiping that down. I don't like to put my ink back into a wet surface. I don't want that to get wet necessarily. A little bit more here. And just add it where you want. You can even, if you want to, tip it up. Mine's not wet enough really to move, but you could do that if you want. And we're going to dry that off. The reason I'm drying in between layers is because I don't want the colours to mix when I add a new one in. I want to be able to see each colour in its own right. But you can see where the oxidisation is starting to happen. So this is the Ground Espresso. And it gets this kind of greyish, bluish, almost lavender tone to it, which I think is really pretty. And with the Forest Moss, you get this kind of really dark khaki green, and then the more yellowy green, and then like this mid green here, all quite yellow undertoned. And you can also see here, as this paper started to dry, that's ready to come off. So we're getting a nice effect there. And there's a bit here as well. So I just wanted to show you the colour variations. I'm next going to go in with the old paper. Another one of my favourite colours. This is a bit of a strange one because it does actually dry blue, even though it comes out green. But it's really lovely. I'm going to put some layers on of this. Mainly concentrating now where it's a little bit more white. I don't mind the white at all. But obviously I'm just trying to disperse the colour evenly. You could even pick up some of that from there. And you'll probably look at it and think it looks a mess. But when you break it up into individual sections and you cut around it, around the shape, you know, it becomes its own thing. For example, this leaf here, which is just gorgeous and just screams autumn to me, is from this here, which when I looked at it I thought it looks like a child from nursery had done it, but the difference on when you actually just use one part of it, it's just gorgeous. So don't worry if you look at it and think it looks a mess, because it will look a mess, and mine looks a mess. Yep, so I'm going to go and dry this off. And the final colour I'm going to use is the antique linen. I'm just going to again look for where there's a little bit of white. And we will dry this layer off. The next thing I want to do, now that's all dry, is I want to use a tiny bit of white gesso. You can use white acrylic paint as well. It's completely optional though at this stage. It's just something that I like to do. I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to roll it off because I don't want too much paint onto here. I just want a really, really thin layer. And I'm just, I mean, that's, you can barely see that at all. Pick a bit more up. Just going to brayer some of this on. And it just picks up it just gives it a little bit of texture and lifts some of the colour. Again, it's optional. And you might be thinking it's not doing anything, but it's just adding a tiny, tiny bit. And it's all about creating texture. Okay, so that's that. And the final step is to, again optional, but I think I want to use gathered twigs to do some splatters. My splatter paintbrush is downstairs, so I'm just going to use this one. Just going to move it over here, hopefully you can see it. Just try and protect my mat a little bit. Oops. You can also do this with your white gesso, which I might do as well. Or you can use black acrylic or black gesso. Just get rid of the excess. Right, and I'm going to dry this off. I also went ahead and just added a little bit of the Distress ink in the same way using the palette. Because it's an ink, it doesn't oxidize, it sticks to its own colour, and it just brings some of that depth back as well. So I'm happy with that now, and the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to lay it under something heavy. So it's ready for stamping. I'm going to go off, I'm going to go and get a cup of tea, I'm going to do some laundry, and then we will get to stamping. So I will see you in a bit. I am so sorry, for some reason my camera flicked onto slow motion. I don't know how it happened, but I now have a big chunk of the video which is in slow motion, and because I've actually recorded it in slow motion, instead of changing it to slow motion, I now can't revert back. So I can only apologise. I'm very sorry. Thankfully, the main thing was actually creating the paper. You have missed me doing the stamping. But I suppose if anything could be missed, that's the best thing. So all I did was stamp onto the paper using some of the different stamps. I also wanted to try out what this little deer was going to look like. I used as well some of these papers. There's a black stamp here that I'm going to cut around, and I stamped onto here as well, and these are looking lovely. I used the archival black ink and then just, you know, just stamped, so you haven't missed anything important, but it is a bit frustrating. I don't know how it happened. So this is one of the ones from this paper here, and this leaf here is from this paper, and this one is from this paper. So they've come out really nicely, and I was just explaining in the other clip that when I cut round them, I kiss cut, so I will leave a little bit of space around the outside because I like to see the colour and treat it as part of the leaf. And then I was also explaining how I then just go round with the black soot, oops, and just outline to help them pop a little bit. So that's all I did. So fingers crossed this is working, and I will just do a few more with you since we are now all together. So let's do this one here, and if this is in slow motion and I can't get this footage, I'm at a loss. I'm having so much trouble at the moment with my iCloud keeps updating itself and downloading things, and you know, without being asked. And I'm, you know, what are you doing, iCloud? I don't want anything. And then that's like jamming up my photos, and then I've got some design work, which is some of the files have been lost from that because of it, and it's just been a nightmare. So I don't know what it's playing at. I don't even want to use iCloud, and I know I can probably turn it off, but every time I try, I worry that I'm going to lose something that I've already got up on there. So that's that one. It's looking nice. So yeah, I find it all a little bit annoying really, but there we go. I'm going to do this one because I use the same stamp but on a different coloured paper, so it might be interesting to see what that looks like. Any of the spare paper I've been keeping because I can either stamp something small on there, or I have been cutting out circles just with the spare, oops, if I can get this one, just with what's left over. So some smaller ones, I think those are 1/2 inch, and then I've done some inch as well. They're just handy to have, you know, if I'm wanting to do like a policy envelope. And I've also just stamped some labels and tabs as well. So I always keep those, can reuse. Okay, so here we have the same stamp, but different colours. So you can see that it really changes by changing the colour of your inks and your paints. It really just changes the effect that you get. And then they would look really nice layered then. Let's do this one. had a bit of an issue with this one. I ended up cutting this bit off, but that looks lovely as well. So if I now get I use one of these because I get a more definite. I cannot believe that I have lost another set of footage. The camera just cut off again, so I don't know what's going on, but I was just saying that once I've cut round, I then will go round with my black soot like this all the way around the outside, and I just feel like this helps it to just finishes it off, makes the colours pop, and just defines it a little bit. That's probably not the best example. There's a brighter one here where you can see the black outline. If there's anything too tiny or too fussy, I will use a black Sharpie pen. So I'm just going to go and do the rest of these off camera because I am terrified that this, something else is going to happen. I'm going to lose a load more footage. So I'm going to go and finish off camera, and then we'll have a look towards the end. Okay everyone, so these are our finished die cuts. These are the ones we've done today. The deer's come out really cute. I love him or her. These are our larger leaves and the nice orange one. Then we've got our kind of middle-sized leaves. This one I haven't gone round yet. That's more like a spiky leaf. Then our smaller ones that we did on the bright paper. These have come out really nice. And I've got this one as well, which I did on the darker paper. So yeah, so that's what we've done today. This is what I did yesterday. So all in all, we've got a really nice combination of darker leaves and some brighter leaves and different colours, all looking lovely for some autumn crafts, and just using some inks and some things that most of us would have lying around on our craft tables or in our craft rooms, or as I say, you could use some tea or some coffee mixture to create some different colours as well. So yeah, let me know what you think if you like them, and thank you for joining me today. I apologise again for some of the technical difficulties, but I hope it hasn't spoiled the video too much. So until next time, look after yourselves, and I'll see you then. Bye.